Things that are new. The rendering engine, VUE rendering engine, not Luxology. So that's all that's built in. Again, it's kind of in the background. You're not going to notice when you click on the render button. You're not going to say, "Oh, you're using VUE renderer." No, right? It just renders. So you're not going to really see a difference except for the speed, right? The speed is you're going to cut your rendering times down into a quarter of the time. The render type is a little bit different, path tracing or ray tracing. I'll go over the difference between those two here in a little bit. So we have path tracing, we have ray tracing. PBR materials. So one of the things that we've done as far as the materials are concerned, we've added PBR materials. That stands for physically based rendering. Very quickly, what that means is that if you've done rendering before, and you did a smooth shade inside of MicroStation, if you assigned let's say you have a sphere in your drawing and you assigned it chrome, if you do a smooth rendering, it doesn't look like chrome, right? It looks just like a gray ball. With PBR materials, now I can do a smooth rendering and actually see those materials. So those materials that you could not see before in Luxology with the smooth rendering, or in MicroStation with the smooth rendering, we can now actually see some of those materials is a smooth rendering. Okay. Basically, what I'm telling you now, smooth rendering allows us to do reflections and refractions and things of that nature that you'll be able to see. And it's a big help, right, as far as smooth rendering is concerned. So PBR materials are really, really cool. Denoise settings. Chuck and I had this discussion before this meeting. And one of the things that Chuck had commented on is this: well, if you're going to use the VUE rendering engine now, you're going to have some pretty big hardware, right? Well, that always helps. I'm not going to lie to you. Having big hardware, having a lot of memory, having a nice gaming graphics card, our VUE rendering engine does use the GPU, and we have denoise settings in both Intel and NVIDIA that work very, very well. Makes your renderings look much, much nicer. Do we need those? No, we don't need a huge system. You can, if you set up a system for Luxology and you're using it and you upped your memory, Luxology was more memory based than it was GPU based. So we can still use those. You don't have to go out and buy the latest NVIDIA card and stuff like that. You can still use those. Okay. Um, it helps if you do have a big gaming NVIDIA card, because we do use the GPU if it is available. So you can stick with your same hardware. And I've run into some problems. One of the things, if you attended one of my seminars before, is they tell you everything flat out, right? So some of the problems that I've run into is that if and I have a fairly light system that I use. I don't have any big graphic cards or anything. So one of the problems I ran into is that I can do about 5 renderings in MicroStation, and then the 6th rendering or 7th rendering will come up just blank, and all I have to do is reboot MicroStation. And what it is clearing out the cache. I have to clear out that cache. That is actually a problem. We're working on that problem right now. It doesn't automatically clear cache, but just rebooting MicroStation will help that. So we can also create ecosystems and atmospheres. Those are 2 new things in the rendering engine. They've replaced, so we don't do fur growth anymore. That was the Luxology engine that did fur growth, and volumetric calculations. If you wanted to put fog or a mist in the air so your lights you can see the cone of the light shining through that. Those are now replaced with ecosystems and atmospheres, both built into MicroStation. So we can edit an atmosphere. We deliver atmospheres now. It was used to be called environments, if you remember, in the Luxology rendering engine. It used to be called an environment. It's called atmospheres now. And that's just basically what the sky looks like, what clouds are in the sky, if it's foggy, if it's clear, so on and so forth. We deliver atmospheres, and you can edit the atmospheres that we send you. You can also purchase actually the VUE standalone product and create your own atmospheres inside of there, as well as ecosystems. So ecosystems would be the trees and the grass and the rocks and stuff like that. You can create ecosystems inside of the VUE standalone program and actually save them into MicroStation. So I can do that. Now we are going to also deliver some ecosystems with our product. We've got the atmospheres being delivered right now. I'm working on the ecosystems right as we speak. So we will also be delivering some basic ecosystems, and we're talking about grass and rocks and trees and things of that nature. But they're awesome. Everybody will love these. And again, we assign the ecosystems as a material to the element inside of MicroStation, exactly how we did it in V8i. Okay. So, like I said in my slide here, you can create ecosystem. You can't create ecosystems inside of MicroStation. I can only use them. So you can actually get a copy of the VUE standalone program. Now, also remember that we've really jumped up in excellence as far as the rendering engine that we're using, right? The VUE rendering engine, you got to keep in mind if anybody has seen the movie Avatar, the VUE rendering engine was actually used to do those plants. Well, Plant Factory is another product, but the plants, the ecosystems, the floating islands, all that stuff was done with the VUE rendering, our VUE standalone product. So you can actually buy the VUE standalone product and you can create your own ecosystem. So there is a workflow. I'm working on developing a guide for that right now. But there is a workflow that I can export my terrains and my solids and my 3D elements in my MicroStation drawing. I can export it to VUE. I can bring it in there and I can create the ecosystems in there, save them as material, then assign them inside of MicroStation. The same thing with the atmospheres. Although I can do some minor editing inside of MicroStation as far as the atmosphere is concerned. I can add more clouds. I can add more fog. I can add less fog. I really can't create an atmosphere inside of a MicroStation. That is done in the VUE standalone program. Post-processing, relighting, and NPR. I'm going to give you a demonstration of this. So NPR means non-photorealistic rendering. Kind of reminds me of Piranesi. If anybody ever seen the rendering program Piranesi, it is, I can take a rendering. This is really cool. I can take a rendering that I've done, a photorealistic rendering done, and make it look like a watercolor or a hand sketch or something of that nature. And that's called NPR, or non-photorealistic rendering. But I can do it. The more important thing is that I can do it after I've done the rendering. Okay. So after I finish and process my rendering, there's two buttons that I have to check. I'll show you those. I can actually change that rendering after I've done it. And it takes a couple minutes, about a minute, to actually change it to a watercolor. So it does not support my last bullet point there on the slide. We do not support FUR or RPC cells. So if you've been using RPC cells, I know there's a couple people out there that have been using RPC cells. We do not support those anymore, and or FUR. Right now, we bring up one of the things that I do when I bring up an old rendering maybe that I've done. As a matter of fact, the one that I'm going to show you was an old rendering that I used FUR growth on. I disable all the FUR that I've done in there. Any material that I have FUR on, I disable it. We have, I believe, a variable inside of MicroStation that will automatically disable the FUR that I've used in any of my renderings for my drawings previously. So, but RPC cells are not available as well inside of MicroStation. And once you see what we can do with this, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.